Bobby Rush holding a panel discussion inside the building right behind us earlier this evening, and that included an update in this ongoing investigation involving local, state, and federal authorities.
They found my cousin in a dumpster, and nobody can tell me how, why, what was her last words.
Using the memory of his loved one, Ricardo Holyfield spoke about dozens of Chicago deaths that share similarities and the growing concern around them. Since 2001, these are some of the women who have been beaten, raped, strangled, and their bodies dumped in secluded places, some set on fire.
I'm here to get everybody aware that this can be stopped if we do so.
For Chicago and several other cities.
As the CBS 2 investigators reported, Thomas Hargrove of the Murder Accountability Project believes similarities in many of these cases point to a possible serial killer as early as 2004. He described most all the 51 killings he scrutinized occurred in places like alleys involving trash bins or abandoned buildings, adding it is possible the killer or killers are using public transportation based on the locations of crimes. Most victims described as African-American women in their mid-30s.
Most of these victims were sex workers.
Latasha Nasmith, who we searched for.
In a panel discussion, law enforcement said they're finished with the forensic analysis of all the evidence, adding they found 21 different DNA profiles among 51 women, but all those profiles are unknown at this time.
Every single swab, every single fingernail, everything has been worked up at this time.
Have you been finding any matches?
No.
So no matches, at least not yet. Now, there is a call this evening for communities to do a better job of monitoring their vacant buildings, vacant households in the neighborhood. This evening, police also emphasizing to neighbors to be much more aware of your surroundings, especially at night. Live in Bronzeville, Jeremy Ross, CBS 2 News. Erica.
Okay, Jeremy, thank you.
5,000 police investigations in Illinois are awaiting DNA test results. The backlog is huge, and today at a hearing, lawmakers demanded action. This comes after a report by CBS 2 investigator Pam Zeckman on 50 unsolved strangulation cases that could be the work of a serial killer.
They came to show their support for grieving families, desperate for answers on who killed their loved one. Among them, Ricardo Holyfield, whose cousin Renee Rio was the most recent of 50 cases we highlighted in our report last month.
It's somebody out here killing people. They not catching them. We need help.
Her body was found in a garbage container last September, part of a pattern of unsolved cases dating back to 2001, according to the founder of the Murder Accountability Project.
We honestly don't understand why it's not already known that some of these are connected killings.
Hargrove's research has successfully identified patterns in other cities, and he believes that here in Chicago, clusters of killings also show a pattern, with victims strangled and dumped outdoors.
I think it is a problem that there is a backlog of thousands of DNA test kits, rape kits. Whatever the samples are, they should be processed and prosecuted.
At today's hearing, the Illinois State Police said they hope increased staffing and updated technology will help deal with a backlog of more than 5,000 cases pending DNA testing, including more than 2,000 sexual assaults and more than 600 murder cases.
Our hope is that within the next 18 to 24 months, we start to see a measurable impact on the DNA backlog.
Not good enough, says State Senator Patricia Van Pelt, who chaired the hearing.
That's entirely too long. So I'm looking for other solutions.
The Chicago police superintendent has now ordered a review of all 51 strangulation cases in Chicago to see if there were DNA samples taken at crime scenes and were they tested. If not, why not? And should new tests be done to see if they get a match in the FBI system? Pam Zeckman, CBS 2 Investigators.
Take a close look at their faces. They're someone's sister, mother, friend. Some have been raped, others beaten.
Dozens of women who were all strangled or asphyxiated. Their cases remain unsolved. Now, as CBS 2 investigator Pam Zeckman reports, a serial killer may be on the loose in Chicago.
It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible.
Their bodies were found in vacant lots, abandoned buildings, and alleys, some dumped in garbage cans, and some even set on fire.
It could be anybody's sister. It could be anybody's daughter. It can happen to anybody, not just to my family.
Audrey Blenstrup's beloved oldest sister, Gwendolyn Williams, was one of the victims.
She kept us out of the streets, and she kept the streets away from us. She was our protector.
But she was the one who needed protection in 2002. Williams' body was found half-dressed, covered in blood, with drugs and alcohol in her system, along with semen from recent sexual activity. There was also skin under her nails.
She was fighting for her life. That's the first thing we all thought to ourselves. She was not going to go down without a fight.
For years, her sisters have been fighting for police to catch her killer.
We loved her very much.
We asked the Murder Accountability Project to review more than 50 unsolved strangulation and asphyxiation cases we found dating back to 2001. The group has a knack for finding patterns in unsolved murder cases using a computer algorithm.
For many years, our algorithm has been signaling red alert about a series of strangulations in Chicago.
Hargrove showed us how he plotted the more than 50 unsolved cases.
Those are the three killing fields, South Side, far South Side, and Chicago's West Side. Disproportionately, these victims are women who have had a history of sex work and who have had a history of illegal drug use.
The cases drop off in 2014, suggesting to Hargrove the killer may have gone to jail temporarily.
The pattern started again in 2017 and have continued with a vengeance into 2018.
Over those 2 years, Diamond Turner, Catherine Satterfield Buchanan, Valerie Marie Jackson, Laura Dawn Harbin, and Nicole Linnell Ridge were killed. Ridge still memorialized near the abandoned garage where she was murdered. All strangled, all declared homicides by the medical examiner. But Rio Renee Holyfield's death last September is in limbo. Streets and sand workers found her in a garbage container. Her body was dumped in a garbage can.
She's not trash, she's loved by many.
Circumstances suggest the death could have been a homicide by asphyxiation, the autopsy report says, but her body was too decomposed to definitely tell. Her cause of death, undetermined, so the police classified it as a suspended death investigation. Does that add to the pain, not knowing what happened?
I feel like razor blades, it hurt even worse.
It is highly unlikely that these 50 women were murdered by 50 separate men.
His warning to Gary, Indiana police proved accurate in 2014. After Darren Dion Van was charged with strangling a 19-year-old prostitute in Hammond, he confessed to murdering 6 other women in Gary, a pattern Hargrove pointed out to Gary police in 2010.
We think it's extremely likely that there are common killer or killers in the Chicago series, as it was proven to be in Gary, Indiana.
But the Chicago Police Department says that at this time, it has no actionable evidence of a pattern that would point to a serial killer. Recently, Gwendolyn Williams' sisters were told Chicago police thought they found her killer. DNA evidence matched a suspect. That suspect was convicted in Detroit in 1980 for armed robbery and again in 2014 for check fraud.
I was relieved that finally we knew who it was.
In September, the suspect was arrested in Tampa on a warrant for first-degree murder in Williams's case. The sisters were told that in an interview with Chicago police, that suspect denied killing Williams or even being in Chicago. New DNA tests did confirm he was with her, but the Cook County State's Attorney's Office decided not to extradite him.
I just hope and pray that something would be done to get him off the streets.
Hargrove hopes his research will help police find whoever may be involved in these cases. Meanwhile,
sex workers, that women who habitually use illegal drugs should think that there's a target on them, because there is.
The Chicago Police Department refused to do an on-camera interview. It does say that detectives continue to investigate all open cases, including pursuing new leads and monitoring DNA profiles. The CBS 2 investigators are not giving up. We will be following up with law enforcement on this issue. Rob and Erica.
So if there was a DNA match, why didn't the state's attorney extradite this man?
As we understand it, they wanted more evidence that he actually killed her. There was evidence that they had sexual activity together, but they're looking for more evidence. The case is still under investigation.
So they may do something, they just can't or won't do it right now with the DNA evidence.
Correct.
Okay, thanks, Pam. So is there a serial killer on the loose in Chicago? That was the question raised in a CBS 2 investigative report.
And tonight a community meeting happened, and a Chicago alderman and state senator said they'll demand answers about the unsolved cases of 50 women Pam Zeckman reported on last week.
Denise V. Torres. Denise V. Torres.
They honored the 50 women with prayer and recited their names.
Shannon Williams. Shannon Williams.
These are some of the women who, since 2001, have been beaten, raped, strangled, and their bodies dumped in alleys, vacant lots, abandoned buildings, and garbage containers, some set on fire.
I saw the piece that you did, and it was shocking.
Beverly Reed Scott organized tonight's meeting and plans to organize the community to press for action.
I'd like to see the superintendent cry over these 50 women.
Meanwhile, 3rd Ward Alderwoman Patricia Dowell says she'll call for city council hearings.
These are too many black women that have lost their lives, and we don't know what happened to them. They've just, disappeared.
As we disclosed, Thomas Hargrove of the Murder Accountability Project believes that similarities in many of the cases point to a possible serial killer.
We think it's extremely likely that there are common killer or killers in the Chicago series.
A cousin of the most recent victim, Rio Renee Holyfield, described his frustrations getting information from the police.
They told us to just wait until CBS Pam came and told us that she dug a little bit more. When Pam spoke up, she spoke up loud enough that they gave all that stuff to us, and we got a chance to put her to rest.
And tonight, State Senator Van Pelt says,
this is raising some questions that need to be answered. I think they're falling through the cracks.
The police department has previously told us they don't believe that at this time there is any actionable evidence that points to a serial killer in these cases. Police officials have refused to do an on-camera interview with us. Rob and Erica?
Yeah, but your story is having a lot of impact, though, as we can see.
It is, and we'll keep following it.
Okay. Thanks.
Live from the CBS 2 Broadcast Center in Chicago, this is CBS 2 News at 6.
Good evening. I'm Erica Sargent.
And I'm Rob Johnson. Tonight, a call for witnesses to come forward and DNA testing after more than 50 Chicago women are strangled and killed. CBS 2 investigator Pam Zeckman first raised the red flag about a potential serial killer on the loose.
Her explosive report has victims' families and community leaders demanding answers now. And today, the head of Chicago Police finally told us exactly what's being done to solve these murders.
This isn't something we're going to, sweep under the rug or just put up on the shelf for it to disappear. We still investigate these cases.
Johnson says he's deeply concerned about these 50 deaths, but
there's just simply nothing there right now that suggests that we have serial killers in the city of Chicago.
As we previously disclosed, the head of the Murder Accountability Project, Thomas Hargrove, says research might show otherwise.
It is highly unlikely that these 50 women were murdered by 50 separate men.
Hargrove says his computer formula highlights a pattern of killings. 50 women strangled and dumped since 2001 that could signal a serial killer.
Those are the 3 killing fields, South Side, far South Side, and Chicago's West Side.
Attention! We caught up to Superintendent Johnson at a police cadet ceremony earlier today. These cases going through these alleys, dumped in garbage cans, set on fire, they're horrible.
Horrific cases, tragic, and nobody deserves to die in that fashion.
Gwendolyn Williams is one of the victims. Her sister, Sharon Pritchett, remembers the day she was killed.
She was fighting for her life. That's the first thing we all thought to ourselves. Whatever was going on with her, she was not going to go down without a fight.
Superintendent Johnson says investigators will take another look at DNA evidence to help find the killer or killers.
We're looking at them now to see if we can go back and do some additional testing to see if that will help us bring to the forefront who these individuals are.
Superintendent Johnson is also asking anyone with any information regarding the 50 unsolved murders to contact the police. And Rob and Erica, we have an interactive map right on our website at cbschicago.com. You can click on the various dots where the bodies were found and get information about who it was and some of the circumstances and when it happened. And that may help to bring people forward.
Yeah, okay. Pam, thanks.